Best ways to describe the old school rap is incredible good songwriting. They really thought of how those well constructed lyrics. I mean, almost to the genius level. We didn't think about that back then, but if you compare 90s rap and stuff from the 2000s beyond, it's definitely genius writing of what they did. Hello, welcome back to a new video. Today I thought I would do something different and something that has a lot to do with my past. Now, I've been listening to a lot more rap, oddly enough, in the last several years, kind of specific rap, and I wanted to do a video on that, but before I got into that and did a video on it, I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to the old school days of rap music because I was there. No, I wasn't there in New York City in the Bronx when the whole scene was happening, but between 1981 in 1985, I was listening to a good amount of rap music and the stuff that was out, and I remember all that stuff. And it was just amazing stuff, and it was awesome, and it was new and fresh at the time. Fresh, pun intended. So with that kind of music, a lot of people, have this nostalgic feeling with it. And then some people say, oh yeah, it wasn't political and stuff like that. They didn't talk about this and that stuff. They didn't talk about, well, yes and no. They did get political as far as social issues go, but they didn't sit there and discuss, specifics. I'll get into it a little bit after. But anyways, my point is the whole thing was about fun and just having fun. So song Rapper's Delight. Rapper's Delight is actually a perfect example of a song that I guess you could say it originated from disco, because stuff with disco, like Chicks disco song, and it kind of had that same vibe and feel. And Rapper's Delight came out in 1979, so it was very disco oriented. But once 1980 hit, and then of course it was Grandmaster Flash, Nucleus, and then there's the Sugar Hill Gang. What was very confusing about that, because the Sugar Hill Gang was a group, but also it was done by Sugar Hill Records, which of course Grandmaster Flash was on Sugar Hill Records and several other artists. On the Sugar Hill Gang 8th Wonder, they even censored Bed, so I think it's kind of funny. Started messing with her head. Next thing you know, she wanted to go down and then has a whistle. So that was kind of an interesting thing that they censored the word bed in there, and it was back in 79. But then, of course, within the song, also if you notice, within the song Rapper's Delight, they started out with hip hop, hippity hop, and saying all that. So it's something that has been said in several other old school songs, and some people who I've spoke to within recent years, in the past, 10, 15 years or whatever, some of them are saying, oh, it wasn't called hip hop back then. Hip hop is a new thing. Hip hop was invented in the 90s. It's like, no, they said hip hop in the songs, in Sugar Hill Gang songs, and many other songs. So as I was talking about the Sugar Hill Gang, what was interesting about it was that they would say their names before the verse and or during the song or what the heck ever. And sometimes even spell it out for you. So it got you to know the people who were singing, like I said, so you could distinguish between the three of them that were in the Sugar Hill Gang. Like Wonder Mike. So Wonder Mike starts off. And then Master G, and the M-A-S, the T-E-R, the G with the double E. And then, of course, Big Bang Hank. So you learn those names, and when they say them, and it's just one of those other things that's funny and interesting. So throughout the early 80s, we weren't really concerned with record labels and who was on what record. I mean, it was a good thing that they always spelled out their name and always mentioned their name, because then we could know who's talking, and then we could distinguish between the two voices of this rapper and that rapper, and who was ever singing at the time. But anyway, same concept with the record labels. Now, Sugar Hill Records was a record that produced a lot of that stuff, and that was the album that we had. We had that on cassette tape, actually. And with that little sugar thing, whatever the heck that thing is on there, it looks like some kind of like licorice or whatever, that was on the album cover. And there was a Sugar Hill Gang, and it's just a confusing story how they did it. So that's actually a compilation album. It's not even actually the Sugar Hill Gang's first album, because their first album looks like this. And see, we were so used to just looking at that. The Sugar Hill Gang Records did a lot of compilations. They went kind of compilation crazy. And they get like a new song and then they put some other songs on it. Just like with the other soundtracks, like to Beat Street and Breaking, which I'll get into. But those are really cool songs. Those are really cool, awesome. That album cover just sticks with you. You know, I remember that. And when I saw it again, I was like, oh yes, that's exactly it. That's the Sugar Hill Gang album. Now we did have a Grandmaster Flash on the Furious 5 cassette tape. And Grandmaster Flash is just another one of those. The first song, The Message. Just like really cool, awesome stuff that it was just amazing. The messages within the message. Very similar to Beat Street, but I'll get to Beat Street after. But in the message, there's just all these other, like, I don't even want to say political, but social issue things that he talked about. And now the song starts off, you know, with that broken glass shattering. Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stairs. They just don't care. And it was just wicked awesome lyrics. It gave you an insight and a view to the ghetto in New York City and stuff like that for people who didn't know, people who didn't, you know, who weren't there. So the song's written by Melvin Glover, who was Melly Mel, and then Sylvia Robertson. Yeah, the same Sylvia Robertson that did Pillow Talk. So she was at a pop star of her own, on her own, and she helped co-write that song, I guess. So anyways, that song is just a very powerful message. I mean, it's just it's a perfect song title for that song because there's so many things that are mentioned in that song that are just really awesome, really memorable, and, you know. Well, listening to that song years later, you know, you hear these like little one-liners. You hear just this other one line and you're just like, holy shit, that happens today. That's still happening, or that's still happening. And it's weird. One part where a girl is pushed in front of a train, and then of course somebody hanging themselves in a jail cell. So it's just kind of just an odd weird thing to think about because you think of recent events that happened way after that has happened. In my car and I'm thinking of the song and I'll be like, oh yeah, it starts off like this, and I remember a couple of whole verses, but then it gets stuck and then I can't remember, and I'm like, oh, I forgot what's after this or what's after that. But that's the kind of music and kind of lyrics that it does. It embeds in your mind, and you think about it and embeds in your mind in a good way because it's just a powerful message and or an important message and lyric. Awesome, incredible song by Grandmaster Flash is White Lines, parentheses, Don't Do It. A really cool anti-cocaine song, and it was definitely way before Master of Puppets. Just saying. And it's just, you know, really cool, neat lines in there. There's some really interesting lines in there, like twice as sweet as sugar, twice as good as salt, and if you get hooked, baby, it's nobody else's fault. So don't do it. Really cool lines like that. It's just the whole song is just, I mean, did it prevent people from doing cocaine? Who knows? Probably. It probably did back in the day. It was just another one of those messages, an anti-drug message, because they wanted people to listen to that, I guess, of course, and not fall for that stuff. Not do that. Don't do it. Another awesome song, doesn't start out musically, but it has just like really intense lyrics. New York, New York. And when you're listening to the song, it's just like, oh, this is really, once again, it's a message, and it's about New York City. New York, New York. Now, it's kind of funny because they said the N-word twice in the song. And it's one of those things, you know, like, oh, geez, where did, you know, the N-word come, or when was it first used? I first know the message, not the message, but New York, New York by Grandmaster Flash to use it. And yeah, nowadays you hear it, it's every other word in like rap songs. But anyways, they used that song, they used that word in that song to emphasize a message. They were really, you know, bold in telling people about their situation and their story, because during the 50s and 60s and even early 70s, a lot of the black music was just love songs and stuff. So they just kind of wanted to go beyond that and further than that and talk about real life situations. So that was one of the other things that just made, you know, the old school hip, old school rap, really powerful, and the music too. The music also, there was a whole new scene and setup, and it was just had a different sound. Just the sound that they came up with, it was just incredible. And both rap and rock music. Another really odd, touching moment in the song New York, New York is that last verse. Now, if you listen to that last verse, and once again, I mean, the stuff that's happened before isn't before 2024 in recent times, but after this song. So it's just one of those other strange things, like, holy shit, nothing's changed. So the part where he's talking about the lady puts the baby in the garbage pail, she kissed the kid, put down the lid, and thoughts are running through your head what you just did. And it's just really like, heart-wrenching and stuff like that. The next song, one of the greatest songs actually ever written, Jam on It by Nucleus, 1984. It was another wicked song, a cool rocking jam song, and it wasn't really specifically about any kind of, there was no social issue, there was no sad story in it. So that's what was awesome about it, and of course just the music. Now of course I had to go on Wikipedia, wiki, the whole wiki part, Wikipedia, and I'm thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, and it says it's the wiki song. And I didn't know, because back then when we were listening to the song Jam on It, we were just, who knows what the heck we were, we weren't thinking specifically, analyzing stuff. We would say, what the heck does that mean, or what's that about? I had no idea, because you hear in the song, did you see where you went in the corner and started doing this, wiki, and it's just like, okay, I had no idea what the heck that was about. We didn't care. And there's squeaky voice interactions and on the song, I was going to say overdubs, about not how the heck they did it. But those voices on there, which made it sound as kind of funny, cute, corny, odd, weird. I don't know how to describe it. It just seems like it's almost like it's a kid's song or something with the squeaky voices. But the squeaky voices, what I envisioned were those little green things on the Q*bert video game. I know it sounds corny and stupid, but back in 1984, I was playing the video game, arcade game, Q*bert, in the arcade, and I just picture those little things doing that and saying those voices. I want to use some audio samples here and just give a couple of quick little things, but I don't know if I'm going to get a copyright claim or a copyright. Parts about the song is when he sings that part. See, when I was a little baby boy, my mama gave me a brand new toy. 2 turntables with a mic, and I learned to rock like a little mic. Time went by, and God's creation, I knew someday I would rock the nation. So I made up my mind just what to do. With I joined up with the Jam On production crew. Oh, go crazy. All right, so I'm not very good at rapping, but that's the line, and that is one of those things that you think about years later, and that just line just pops in your head. Even though I haven't listened to Jam On It, this is when I was thinking of it. I'm like, geez, I haven't listened to Jam On It in like a good 10 years or so. It's like going back to 2007, and I started just singing and thinking of the lyrics in my head, and I remembered most of the song. I was like, man, that's how powerful and good a song is when you're listening to it in 2007. And I can't remember the last time I listened to that. Probably the early 90s. Since between the early 90s when was one of the last times that I listened to it, and I don't listen again until 2007, and I'm remembering most of the lyrics and how it goes. And I forgot how far I got, but I was irritated I couldn't remember more, but I remembered a good chunk of it. Breakdancing is one of those things that they did to compete against each other, against their rivals. So it was a breakdance battle and or sometimes a rap battle. Really awesome, but then not too great. The Beat Street soundtracks. The Beat Street and Breakin' soundtrack. As you see on here, I got Beat Street 2 in yellow and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. Now I remember both of those, and I remember the Beat Street soundtrack. The Beat Street by Grandmaster Flash is an awesome song. It's very similar to The Message. You can't let the street beat you. Beat Street because it's got beats, because it's a dance song, and it's one of the songs you can move your feet to. So that whole concept. So Beat Street soundtrack was good, but Grandmaster Flash Beat Street was the only really awesome song on it, the Pink covered one. Breakin', really cool movie. Once again about the scene and hip hop and stuff like that, and the breakdancing, the rap music that was out in the early 80s. The best and awesome song on that was Reckless by Ice-T. That song was just definitely one of my favorite songs off the Breakin' soundtrack. Fast forward to the next year, there's Beat Street 2, and then there's Breakin' 2. And the best song off Beat Street 2 was Battle Cry. I really like that one. And the best song off of Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo, was that Indada, Dundo, Dindada. That song. It just kind of sounded like mumbling. And there was another song off there, and I forgot. Who gives a shit? But anyways, if you listen to the Beat Street soundtracks and or the Breakin' soundtrack, you could hear just like a lot of lame ass like dance songs or something. And you picture all this like girls dancing to something like ballet or some kind of thing. Some kind of like routine dance song that they would play while practicing their dance. And it just sounds very popish and it sounds very weak. And it doesn't sound that great. So that's my point. One song off each of one of those, maybe two, were really interesting. The rest of them actually just sucked. In recent times, and this is a number of years ago he said it, which is kind of weird, but yet at the same time, I mean, do you want really it to... They can't create Beat Street again or stuff like that, and those iconic songs that were just masterpieces at the time. They kind of can't really recreate them. They could do other versions similar to it, I guess. That's what they did. But of course, it become redundant. And that's my whole point about like 90s rap and the gangster rap crap. It become redundant and it's become repetitive. And people are just tired of that shit. Running out of songs to actually, and topics to rap about and sing about. A lot did until somebody else came along.